Welcome to Season 2 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. On the show, we'll look at the who, what, where, why, when, and how of moving out of your education career and into a life you love. In this season, we'll meet ex-teachers who have taken their hobbies and passions from outside of education and created a new career for themselves. We'll talk to people who can support and inspire us as we make the transition and work on identifying the legacy we want to leave in the world. So come along for the ride as we get out of teaching. Episode 23. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm very pleased to be interviewing Bronte Spicer, who is a mindfulness education specialist and sacred space holder. Welcome to the show, Bronte.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Bronte, I'm going to ask you, tell us your story. What got you into teaching in the first place?
I always wanted to be a teacher. I had a favourite teacher when I was in grade 2 and I adored her. I wanted to be her. When I finished school, I wanted to study outdoor education, and so I chose, with my mum's input, a double degree. So I was studying outdoor education and primary education. That was always a bit of a challenge because we don't actually teach outdoor education in primary settings. But I just had a real passion for being in the outdoors, and that's where my heart led me into outdoor education. And at the same time, I did have a love of being with kids. I loved being around kids. I loved teaching kids. I loved playing schools as a kid. I had some great experiences in school, and that's what drew me to it.
Wonderful. And actually, I interviewed Lynn McLennan the other day, and she also used to play schools, lined up all her teddy bears. So it's obviously a bit of a common theme there. So what was the context? So when you actually started teaching, where were you teaching and how long did you teach for?
I started as a CRT teacher, and at the same time I was working as a swim school coordinator. Once I finished
sorry, I'll stop you there. So CRT is a casual relief teacher for the international audience who might not be familiar with that term.
Yes, okay. Casual relief teacher. Once I finished studying my double degree after 4 years of education, which I had just come out of school, I went straight from school to uni. I was just done with school and needing to do things that way, and I just needed a break. And also the fear of not getting a job really took me away from actually even applying for teaching jobs. And I've forgotten the question.
So you said you were a swim school coordinator as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that entail?
So I did that part-time as I was working as a casual relief teacher, and then I actually ended up working as a casual relief teacher at a school where I knew one of the staff members, and she gave me she told the assistant principal that she knew me from when I was a child, and that I was good and that I was worth having around, and I ended up falling into a contract at that school. And that was my first full-time role as a primary school teacher, as a generalist teacher, having my own class, and I was there for close to 3 years.
Okay. And then did you get out of teaching at that point?
No. So then my husband and we went traveling, working overseas for 3 years, and I did some relief teaching in the UK. And came back. I went back into teaching into special ed. So I worked at 2 different schools for 2 years, one in Melbourne at Educator School for Autism, and also Bendigo Special Developmental School here in Bendigo, which is where I live now. And once I fell pregnant and I at the same time, I'd always had this inkling, this knowing, this wanting to practice and become a Reiki practitioner and really kind of work in that holistic realm,
Right.
that holistic space. So once I had my firstborn, then that was kind of the out that I wanted. My heart was, as much as I love teaching, I also had all this other stuff that I wanted to do. I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to offer Reiki and readings, and I wanted to hold meditation circles and spiritual circles, and that was, what my heart really wanted.
And so there was no real kind of crisis or trauma. It was just a nice segue out.
It was a really nice segue out. Since then, I've been out of teaching for nearly 6 years now, and I have been through periods of my life in that time where I've thought, should I go back to teaching? Because I really love teaching. There were lots of different aspects that I loved about teaching, and I just keep getting stopped because there's a lot of things that I don't want to go back to. I don't agree with all parts of the education system the way it is, and I get to be free and I get to do what I want and I get to create what I want in my own business. So I think it's exciting that we can actually have these amazing teaching skills that we have, and we get to use them in the way that lights us up, in the way that we want to. And then we get to create the change that we want and have that impact in the world that we want, rather than kind of being squashed and overworked and exhausted and walking around the supermarket like a zombie after work, like teachers do.
Got it. Yep. I would definitely remember that zombie-like feeling walking around the supermarket, and also dodging my students, trying not to get, drawn into lengthy conversations with them when I really needed to get home and cook dinner or something. So were there skills that you needed to bring with you out of your teaching? Or did you need to do further training to start up your business and go down that pathway?
Yes. So I was already a Reiki practitioner before I finished my teaching career and my standard teaching career.
Mm-hmm.
And I also studied to become an advanced meditation teacher. Then the next training I did was I became a certified Killer Bee inquiries facilitator, which is a set of applied mindfulness or advanced mindfulness techniques to dissolve depression, anxiety, and mental blocks.
Wow.
Other than that, I did some
amazing.
business. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll talk more about that hopefully. But yeah, other than that, not a lot. I did a business coaching course so someone could show me how to make good money from what I do, and so
Right.
I could transition. There was lots of talk around. My husband and I would talk about me going back to teaching. He wanted me to go back to teaching, so we had that sustainable income for our family. I went back and did maybe 4 days of CRT, the casual relief teaching, and I mean, it was easy money, but it just wasn't really fulfilling me in the way that I wanted to be fulfilled. So I chose to just decide that once I signed up to work with this business coach from Sydney, Kushla Chadwick. She showed me a process, a system, a strategy that I still use, and that's what I use to make sure that I've got ample money. Actually, I've matched and then surpassed my income that I was making as a teacher.
Fantastic.
So I get to, yeah.
So was there, I mean, it sounds like your husband was fearful about the lack of security. What about you?
I was really worried that my business wouldn't work and that I would be a failure and that I would have let my family down. It was really quite challenging to tell him and decide that I would take 2 days out of my work day to commit to my business and make it work. And there were lots of fears around this. I'm wasting money. I'm wasting time. This isn't going to work. And I probably spent a year and a half kind of faffing at home, not really doing anything. And once I'd decided to work with this particular coach and invested in that money, that was kind of that motivation for me to make this work. And once I'd made that clear decision and kind of taken the bull by the horns and just said to my husband, I need 2 days, if I have the time, then I can make this work. And so we got really clear with when my work days were. I wasn't kind of fitting in and around right. Life. It became a priority, and similar to how we know exactly how we're spending our time from 9 to 5 on our regular work day or day job. That's what I did to make it actually happen.
Yeah, wow. And so did that mean like putting kids into childcare, that kind of thing? Is that what you mean?
We were in a lucky position in that Lee, my husband, he works shift work. So he's home 7 days a fortnight. So we didn't have to do the childcare thing. Right. And so, yeah, he just looked after our kids while I worked 2 days a week. So that was a real bonus.
Yeah, fantastic. And it sounds like once you made the decision, it was a firm thing. You didn't need to faff around, as you say.
No, and the faffing was just avoidance, and really deep down it just was all fear of failure. Fear of, I was self-sabotaging. It was just, I wanted to do it, but I didn't know. I was just terrified of failing. So I was just kind of doing nothing for a year and a half. And then, yeah, as I said, once I decided and committed and actually started implementing the strategies that work, then I had that foundation and that structure to really to create what I wanted. So to create the programs I wanted to offer the mentoring I wanted to do, to offer the kinder mindfulness programs that I run, the staff and wellbeing seminars, and everything else, retreats, and
else. So it sounds like you really stepped into yourself, like into your power, and exactly, you've got real clarity about what you're doing.
That's it. Yeah. And I think I just kept looking back to teaching and just getting a no. It was just a closed door. It just felt like a closed door. It felt like, no, that's not actually what I want to do. I actually just want to do my own thing. I want to build what I want to do on my terms, and not in a horrible, forceful way, in more of a flowing, expansive way where time is not, it's not so limited. Like with teaching, it's just, there's just no time for anything. Whereas now I run a business where I get to laze about in between clients and sit in the sunshine with my family. So it's just it's like chalk and cheese. Like, and I still get to teach. I love teaching, and I still get to teach, and I get to teach what I want to teach.
Oh, you paint a beautiful picture, lazing in the sun. Sounds great.
It's true. Yeah,
So you must have done you said you did some training. Was there anything else that you needed to do, like to become to where you're at now, like the level of what you're teaching now and what you're training people in now? Are there certifications, like particular certificates, or?
I've pretty much told you what I've done. I think the fact that I'm a teacher, and I have a double degree in outdoor education and primary teaching, and I had 10 years of teaching experience. We don't start our businesses with nothing. We have so much professional and personal experience that we bring to our businesses. And just as I said before, aside from that, I learned how to read, like offer intuitive readings. I became a meditation teacher. And
so when you did those courses, I guess that's what I'm asking. Were they like certified courses? Like, how did you find those things?
Yeah. So the Reiki, to become a Reiki practitioner, that was with my local spiritual development teacher in Mooroolbark. the advanced meditation certification that was through just changed their name. They've just changed their name. It's the Australian Centre for Meditation and Mindfulness. That can be found online. That's an online course.
Okay.
I did just a 2-day workshop to learn how to offer intuitive readings, and the certified Killer Bee inquiries facilitator training that took 9 months, and that was online. That's my most recent modality that I've learned. So all quite available, accessible in and around kids and households and running businesses.
Fantastic. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so if you were talking to someone who was like on the brink of maybe thinking of getting out of teaching, or they're ready to get out, but they're just feeling stuck, what advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Well, when we're stuck, we're not sure. And at the same time, we generally know what our heart wants. And when we're stuck, we're in our head and we're trying to logically make our way out of a situation. And if we stick to just logical thinking, then we feel safe in a job. We're safe in job security, with holiday pay and sick pay and whatever. And then there's also underneath, the thing is that we're not just our heads, that there's this expansive heart that can trust that you are safe to let go and really follow your calling and follow what you really want to do. And I mean, what I would say is to get out in nature. So have a rest, go on a holiday, get out of your normal routine, and start journaling, start meditating, start listening to the inspiration that you're getting, and trust that those inspired ideas are worth listening to, and that it is possible for you to create the work that you want, and in a way that you can make a difference. You can really make a difference in a powerful way when you're using your skills in a way that is not leaving you depleted and exhausted and overwhelmed and, completely running on empty. So, yeah. And I think you do need structure. So you do need someone like a mentor or a coach is very helpful. Someone like you, Elizabeth, who can guide you and support you when the fears and the doubts get too loud. And it is important to have strategy and structure and someone showing you the way how to build a business. And step by step, you need to do the inner work as well. So, and that's why the Killer Bee inquiries is so powerful. It's the most powerful set of inner work techniques I've ever come across. So much so that it dissolved my 20-year bout of depression.
Do you want to share a little bit more about that with us?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think many of the listeners will be suffering from anxiety and fearful depression, and that
Absolutely
would be really helpful to get a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So I started experiencing depression around the age of 14, 15, around the time that my parents split up. And it was as debilitating as getting to a point where I didn't want to get out of bed. Functioning, putting a load of washing on felt like a marathon. I was on antidepressants for 12 years. And I guess and in that time I was a teacher as well. I remember having heart palpitations on the way to school, like feeling like, how am I going to get everything done? Just trying to keep up with the curriculum, trying to keep up with all of the paperwork, all of the mounting tasks that we're given as a teacher. That was all a part of that time when I was depressed. And just last year I got to a point where I started questioning. I thought, even though I'd tried to come off antidepressants for a few times. It didn't work every time. I had to keep going back on them. There was a part of me that was questioning, thinking, how come some people just, they have depression and then they overcome it? And here I was thinking that I just would have depression for the rest of my life. I just thought that's who I was. That's just how my life would go. And I just started questioning and thinking, well, surely if some people have depression and then they overcome it, surely there's a possibility and a potential that I could be one of those people as well. So I have a strong connection to spirit and, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And I just asked, I prayed, I asked for the teachers to come to me to show me how to overcome my depression. And then I just, within weeks, literally, I had a man move to Bendigo, my hometown, my now hometown, who introduced me to the Killaby inquiries, which is, as I said before, a set of advanced or applied mindfulness techniques. And I call it applied mindfulness techniques because what you're doing is you're asking questions and you're using mindfulness and applying it to past trauma and past pain and past painful memories. So we're not just staying in the present moment. What we're doing is we're going towards all of the things that we normally run from. And those traumatic experiences are where we've created a sense of deficiency, a deficient sense of self, like a negative sense of who we are. And so that's what drives all of our behaviours, addictions, patterning, actions, self-sabotage, unhealthy relationships with ourselves and others. All of that sense of lack and sense of negativity comes from those core beliefs that we formed in those significant moments in our lives. Generally from our childhood, but also we've also had traumatic experiences in our teens and adulthood as well. So in those pivotal moments, we make these deficiency stories about who we are and about the world, but it always can stem back to who we are. And so once I learned that technique, once I learned these techniques, I could just see through the story. I could see through all of the negativity. I could see through the beliefs that I had about myself, and they just literally started to dissolve before my eyes. And I mean, overcoming depression doesn't actually feel right. It's more the depression dissolved. It collapsed. It's like it was like it folded up like an IKEA box, like a flat pack.
Right.
Because the whole web of my depression was based on a negative or a story. It was just a story, and I had attached myself to that story, to that sense of self. So once I could see through that story, there was no depression. I came off my antidepressants, and I felt, once all of that happened, I just could not, I had to become a facilitator, because that very set of techniques completely changed my life. And so now I'm currently writing a curriculum based on the Killaby inquiries to then take to schools. So kids have these techniques at a much earlier age than I did.
Right. And how do you spell that?
The Killaby inquiries. So it's Killoby, and inquiries is with an I, so it's INQ.
Yeah.
Because it's American.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds fascinating. And so how do you intend to use it in schools? Like, how would you, I guess you're still writing that curriculum.
Yeah. So I've already started in a way. So last year I started going into kindergartens and teaching mindfulness to kindergarten students. Over a set of like a 10-week program. And I'm writing the curriculum. So so I can do the same thing. So run and facilitate mindfulness programs in schools for students, so both primary and secondary. And I'm also putting together some staff wellbeing, trauma-informed staff wellbeing professional development, because I look back at what I was like as a teacher, getting frustrated by the kids in my class who wouldn't stop talking, or they wouldn't listen to me, or I had 10 kids at once talking to me or talking at me, or the behaviors were just, so hard to deal with on a daily basis. And so now that I have this understanding that we are triggered by situations like this, and what's really happening is that core deficiency story, that core sense of who we are is being triggered. So it's less about the children and the students and what they're doing, to annoy us, and them being bad kids and being and having bad behavior. And it's more about if we as teachers in the classroom knew how to process our own emotions from those original traumatic experiences, then we would be able to be more present with our kids, love them as they are, accept them, hold space for them. So, we're coming from a clear space. We're not coming with all of our baggage and kind of spewing that and projecting all of that all over our students. What we're doing is we're creating this safe place where we feel safe in who we are, and we can be present with all the emotions that are arising within us as we hold space for them. And they're going through their own stuff. They're at the point where they are developing that sense of self and sense of identity. And they're having experiences like they're being rejected by their peers, and, perhaps they're being neglected by their parents at home or whatever else. And we talk about developmental trauma in the Killer Bee inquiries. So often we think of trauma, we think you have to be raped, or have to have had physical abuse, or go to war to have been traumatized. But in actual fact, and I don't want to take that away from anyone who's been through such horrific experiences, but something as simple or as more common, like a child standing up in front of everyone in class and having everyone laugh at them, that can be just as devastating and completely soul destroying. And so every single student and every single teacher have had those experiences. And so the best way for education is for when we are able to be with all of our own pain. And in the Killer Bee inquiries, pain is only it's three things: words, pictures, and body sensations. So the words are the thoughts, like the dialogue that you hear. The pictures are either the future projection imagery that you have in your head about what could go wrong, or it's the past memories, like those painful memories we don't even want to look at. And the body sensations. And the body sensations is the missing piece in the mental health model. This is my legacy, which you wanted to hear.
I'll just jump the gun. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll tell you now. Once I learnt the Killer Bee inquiries, I realised what was wrong with the mental health model, because it's all based on talk therapy. So it's all based on, we'll go to psychologists and counsellors and we'll talk and talk and talk about our problems. Psychologists, they will help us find our core beliefs, like, okay, yep, so it sounds like you've got a wound around your mum. You've got issues with your relationship with your mother, as an example, and this stems from you not feeling good enough. Great, that's great insight, but then what do we do with that? We feel like absolute failures because we can't get rid of that belief that we're not good enough. So what the Killer Bee inquiries gives you is that next practical step It shows you what to actually do in a practical way to have those words and the corresponding body sensations dissolve. So you're not carrying around your baggage. You're feeling so much clearer. And those words, I'm not good enough, they're like water on a duck's back. They come, but they go. So once I found the killer bee inquiries, I realized what was missing in the mental health model, because I had spent 20 years going to psychologists and counselors and having talk therapy. So we would talk over and round and round and round in circles about my problems. And psychologists will get you to the point to realize what your core belief is, which is great. That's great insight. So they might help you realize that you've got issues with your mum and that you have a story that you believe that you're not good enough. But then it's like, well, what do we do with that? Okay, I can't get rid of that belief. I want to feel like I'm enough, but I just don't. And how do it's like we feel stuck with that belief that we're not good enough. And so what the killer bee inquiries brings is the next step. It's the next practical step. It's what to do with those words and pictures and body sensations that come with not being good enough. And that's what's missing. We talk a lot of, we're in our story basically when we're in talk therapy, and what's missing in the mental health model is somatic awareness. So most of us walk around, and I most certainly I was in my head. I didn't know what was happening in my body. I didn't feel safe to feel my pain. I didn't feel safe to feel my feelings. I didn't feel safe to feel or look at my baggage because I thought I was going to die. Yeah. But when I learned the killer bee inquiries, I was shown very carefully and selectively and safely. I was shown how to safely feel my feelings. I was shown how to process my own trauma in a way that I wasn't going to be re-traumatized. And so that's my legacy. I'm here to show everyone how to experience emotional intelligence and body intelligence so they can feel safe in themselves, so they don't have to run from themselves, so they don't have to run from their feelings, and they feel safe to feel all parts of themselves. Which when that's what developmental trauma is it's stacking up baggage after baggage after baggage after all of our traumatic experiences. And this trauma is incomplete because we haven't actually processed it because we have forgotten as a society how to feel. We don't want to feel.
Do you think too that, I mean, I work with a lot of teachers, and I think what you're saying is going to resonate really strongly with them, that we spend a lot of time as educators in our head, and we're constantly thinking about, like, we do all that study, and then we come and we teach, content, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And there's not a lot of connection to how that makes you feel, or trusting. And I mean, I know myself, like I've been on a sort of health and wellness weight loss journey. And I was just telling my coach the other day, I walked over some rocks in the creek, like to cross to the other side of the creek. And it's one of the few times where I really felt I could trust myself. I could trust my body to get me there safely, that I had the balance and the strength to do it. I felt confident, and I think, my whole life and not just as a teacher, but even before that, I have this propensity to live up in my head and not think about my body. And so for me, there's been a shift, but I just wonder if there's something there for a lot of teachers where we might be a bit stuck in our heads.
Absolutely. And I think it comes from this obsession with productivity and achievements. We're always striving to get to our next goal, so we're good enough. And then that's not quite good enough, so we have to go for the next goal. And we're on this perpetual cycle of trying and striving and getting to the top which is an illusion, by the way. And part of that is escaping ourselves as well. We're like, we're not good enough as we are, so we have to keep achieving and keep striving and keep making things happen, so we become better, so we become okay, so we are enough. And the way that schools are run, it's very much product it's all based on productivity, and it's all based on achievements, and we have lost that sense of balance where we are actually just being, and we are connecting, and we are allowing ourselves to be with ourselves. I mean, if you look at kids, they're on their phones. If you look at adults, they're on their phones, where we don't feel safe in being with ourselves. And so this is a journey and a returning back to being free and comfortable, and to feel safe in ourselves, and absolutely being in our body, because yes, we are in our minds a lot, and it's not doing us any favors. It's not doing our kids any favors. I mean, if we think about teachers, if we can make the best learning environments for our kids, how could we possibly get that from having overworked teachers?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, absolutely. And, you know, as you were talking it, I just thought of it was actually my last day of teaching. I did a relief day of CRT work at a local primary school, and I had to teach art for some of that day, and there was a little kid, and I can't even remember exactly what happened, but he just wouldn't sit down, or whatever it was I'd asked, he just wouldn't do it. And I just caught myself going, just do as you're told. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. So, and this, with the community I live in, there are a lot of kids who've had trauma. And I just saw this shock and fear on his face. And I just thought, I should not be here. I should not be in this space inflicting myself on these little people who have already got something else happening, you know, another layer of trauma underneath me being here. And so that actually was my last day. No, it wasn't like a big, you know, I'm leaving or anything like that. It just was, I just didn't sign up for any more work. And yeah, I really value what you're doing, because I think it's not just the kids that have in the trauma, the teachers have had trauma as well. And often in their own, as you say, in their own education, they've been traumatized in the classroom. And so how do we I guess turn that around?
Absolutely.
So Bronte, would you say would you, if someone wanted to get in touch with you to work with you or to use any of the many services that you provide, what would be the best way to get in touch with you, and what would they be sort of looking for? How would they Google you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Facebook. That's probably my main port of call. So my Facebook page is Bronte Spicer. I'm also on Instagram, and my website is brontespicer.com. I am actually running a group program that would be perfect for anyone who wants to match or surpass their income from moving out of teaching and then actually building what they want to do, as using mentorship packages. And yeah, of course, you can work with me one-on-one as well if you want that deeper level of support, and you'll find the details at my website, brontespicer.com.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Bronte, are there any regrets for leaving teaching?
No. I mean, I have the choice. I could go back, and I do ask myself that from time to time.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I can go back if I want to, but I just don't really want to.
So are you still registered as a teacher?
I am, yeah. I keep paying the VIT.
Yeah.
Yeah, Victorian Institute of Teaching fee, just so I don't have to do all of the provisional work, which I'm okay with, because I do want to work more in schools. Next year I'll be doing a lot more staff wellbeing. So yeah, so we can hold space for those teachers who are experiencing really challenging times in the classroom.
Yeah, for sure. And just a final question before we wrap this up. What's a favourite song of yours?
So my favourite song at the moment is Grandmother Tree and the Feathered Serpent by Dja Dja Wurrung. And part of my work is to learn how to open that space up to feel into the sacred parts of ourselves. And so I offer sacred dance as my that is often an element in my Sacred Earth gatherings that I hold fortnightly and also at my retreats. And this song just helps me to get out of my head and step back into flow and allow the full power of the earth to come through me. And that's what guides me and directs me in my work, so I can be that expansive light rather than that diminished and constrained and confined self that we sometimes find ourselves in.
Bronte Spicer, thank you so much for coming on the Get Out of Teaching podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure interviewing you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Lark Song Enterprises, with your host, Elizabeth Diakos. Do you know someone else who could benefit from hearing more stories of hope and transition from teachers all around the world? Please take a moment to share this and other episodes via your podcast app. Each share helps me reach listeners just like you who can benefit from this content. The Get Out of Teaching podcast is proud to be part of the Experts on Air podcast network. For show notes and other resources, please visit larksong.com.au/podcast.